Quackity quack. We are backity back. And I wish I could say the New England Patriots returned all the way back to the top. But unfortunately, today we are talking about the Patriots losing Super Bowl 60 to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm Colin McDonough, along with Matt McDonough, and we're just going to wrap up the Patriots season that saw them go from 4-13 to 14-3, winning the AFC East, winning the AFC Championship game out in Denver before falling to Seattle by two scores in the Super Bowl, denying them their seventh and would be a record Super Bowl. Matt, do you want any to share any initial thoughts with the Patriots' loss to Seattle?
Well, I think it's good we're doing this now because in the current sports, quote unquote journalism world, if you could call it that anymore, there's a lot of emphasis on immediate reaction, hot takes, and kind of turning the page very quickly. So I think this is good to kind of wrap up the Patriots season in a not so timely anymore manner and let our thoughts marinate and kind of reflect upon what was really an incredible season. Definitely made me cross since week one after the Raider loss, but glad to have that on my face with how the season turned out. Totally exceeding my expectations, even though you did think that they had a double-digit win season and playoff run in them. I gave up hope very quickly in September, and again, glad to have been very wrong about how the season would turn out. Despite the disappointment of how it ended, it was a really great season to be a fan of the Patriots.
And if we think about New England Patriots history, I think comparing it to Super Bowl losses that we've been coherent for, it doesn't, even talking to other Patriots fan friends and family, it doesn't come close to the two Giants losses, especially obviously the first for the 2007 season, then 4 years later, a chance of redemption, or even the Eagles loss, which over the span of years, the Eagles loss kind of, was sandwiched in between Super Bowl wins that made it a lot more tolerable. But I think in the moment, just what that game was with the Malcolm Butler benching and the defense not being able to get a stop. So, like, you think of the, Giants losing the undefeated season, that's something you will regret forever. They can't get revenge. The Eagles, and plus with the Brady Belichick years, anytime the Patriots lost even a regular season game, it was doomsday, let alone Super Bowls. I think overall, thinking back at this season, we talked a little bit about um, will it feel like it's a season the Patriots made the Super Bowl instead of the Patriots lost the Super Bowl, which even though we were very young and barely coherent, would it feel almost like a two touchdown loss to the Green Bay Packers in New Orleans in the Super Bowl with Drew Bledsoe, Ben Coates and Curtis Martin and Bill Parcells. Will this be how we look back on it years from now? Even if it's not a classic Seahawks team, it was a well deserving Super Bowl champion Seahawks team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The Seahawks were way better, and they are the best team. And as you said, I think it is already, in a way, feeling like they made the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's a winner and loser in every game. The Seahawks took it to them, and were the deserving winners by really earning it from the jump in a way, despite the scoring being a little bit at a premium, to say the least. The Seahawks broke it open a little bit in the second half, but Seattle just made it feel like the Patriots, didn't have a chance. Really, from virtually the beginning of the game, it seemed like it was, a little bit of the teams on two completely different levels. But like you said it best, where with the Patriots, a loss would feel like the sky was falling during the Brady and Belichick years based on expectations, personnel, and making the most of that window. Obviously, you have a set amount of time. They were lucky enough to be together 2 decades and have 6 Super Bowl wins, but you remember losses much more painfully in that era, whereas you said losing an undefeated season, something you could never get back. The second Giants loss was like reliving the nightmare, and would have kind of, not been full revenge, so to speak, but a unique roster that, would have given rings to um, some of the guys who were there for the Giants loss and ultimately didn't get it. Didn't get a ring with the Patriots. I think Moss was already gone, though, right?
Yeah, he was gone.
So,
Ocho Cinco would have gotten a ring.
yeah, but Welker would have got one. Logan Jenkins would have got one. But yeah, overall, it is kind of just again not the and well, quickly the Eagles was just excruciating, as you said. They could have had 3 in a row in hindsight, but the sandwich Super Bowl wins helped a lot. But that was incredibly frustrating and disappointing at many levels. Brady thrown for over 500 yards, and like you said, the defense just needed a stop, and a couple of those Eagles touchdowns. If the Patriots had touchdowns like that in the Super Bowl, they'd still be replayed just as much as the Tuckville to certain fan bases. So that's where those 3 Super Bowl losses during the Brady Belichick era felt like missed opportunities when they're favorites and expected to be there. This obviously was nowhere like any of those. And as you said, it felt like a Super Bowl where, the better team won, and they showed it from the jump. Even when you talk about that 97 Super Bowl, when we respect our dear friend, close friend to this day, loved Brett Favre at the time and had a Brett Favre autograph on his wall. You sent me the picture that was circulating on Twitter, the Play Football All-Star MVPs with the mini action figure, the figurines of both teams, and he was nice enough to give us the Curtis Martin and Ben Coates and Drew Bledsoe and Terry Glenn ones. But like that, weirdly, I remember being slightly annoyed that we had to play with that game, knowing the Patriots lost the game. But like you said, in our infancy of football fandom, as a 6-year-old, the Packers were supposed to win the Super Bowl and the Patriots weren't, and Super Bowls weren't supposed to go down to the wire as the next 9 Patriots Super Bowls always seem to go. But yeah, I mean, you even mentioned it where the Ravens lost at home, where they blew the double-digit halftime lead in the AFC title game as to Baltimore in 2013, and then the loss at Denver, where they, one of Brady's best passes, the fourth down to Gronk, and then the touchdown that couldn't be followed with a 2-point conversion to tie it up, and Manning's last rodeo there. That they got the AFC title win in Denver finally, but those felt worse than this for sure. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, even like the blowing the lead against the Colts.
Yeah,
and we
rest in peace, Rachel Caldwell. Obviously, terrible what happened to him, but yeah, I mean.
And just to check quick, I think the game against Baltimore was a 13-7 halftime. We don't have our producer behind the glass, but yeah, still a halftime lead, and I think they got the ball out at half or something.
Yeah, and then and like that loss of the Colts, I mean, that was brutal. I mean, 18 points, and again, I feel awful for Reese Caldwell, both on and off the field. Obviously, his life cut short, and but that's the lasting image. Where that was in that game, right?
Yeah, I believe so, unless that was a different. Let's check. Yeah, well, so even like you even said, I think he actually, yeah, I think he had a playoff drop. I think in that game, still haunted. Yeah,
I mean, the defense. I mean, that was when the defense just
2006 AFC Championship.
Yeah, that was from the defense.
No,
like
yeah.
that's unfortunate.
The Asante Samuel pick six, we thought it was, and they would have played the Bears. But friend of the
That's
podcast
almost like
would
the
say Rex
Bill
Grossman would
Belichick
win.
repeat. But that's where, like, you have the lasting image of him, unfortunately, whereas, as you said, the defense helped them get the lead, but, Manning just woke up there, and in the dome, it just, the floodgates opened where they just couldn't find it in the second half. But yeah, you're right, where it's just, and those losses, that's the other thing where sometimes these details blur. Like, I don't remember much.
Well, yeah, you don't watch the highlights, you don't watch the NFL Network replays, you try to block it out.
Yeah, I don't remember details on either Giants loss or Eagles loss anymore. Just like, I don't remember details of 2010 with the Celtics and LA Game 7. So you try to forget a lot of things, especially the games we're kind of listing here. You want to forget most of it, if not all of it.
Yeah, and I think even getting back to this game that is forgettable as a game. Like you said, the Seahawks were the better team, and they made the Patriots look like they didn't have a chance. And that's what a lot of people said leading up to this game. So, I mean, this is a time where I would have loved the Patriots to be able to be classic Patriots. Everyone was hating on them. Everyone was ended up being right. So, from the Athletic to NFL Network to NBC to ESPN, all the prognosticators that picked the Seahawks were right. The meme or phrase used, the haters were right. Good call by the haters. That is actually fitting for this one, because even with the turnaround season Mike Vrabel and Drake May and company led them to, they got through the Chargers, Texans, and Broncos. Texans had some injuries, Chargers had some injuries, Broncos had injury to Bo Nix. Everyone has injuries in a sense. The offense didn't look good. Obviously, the snow in the second half in Denver, against Jared Stidham winning that game 10-7, led a lot of people to say the Patriots had the easiest schedule. They didn't have the hardest playoff run, even though they were playing top defenses, and just the still to some people it's the Brady Belichick dynasties ages ago, but to people probably of our age, it feels like recent history where a lot of people still hate the Patriots. So they didn't make the haters wrong. They didn't prove everyone wrong. The people who picked against them were right, and some people picking an easy win for the Seahawks was was in a way right. Where even though it was 12-0, it just, like you said, felt like the Patriots did not look like they were belonging on the Super Bowl field in Santa Clara.
Yeah, the other thing with the schedule, this is, just ludicrous, the schedule thing. I understand it's the easiest schedule because of the worst winning percentage collectively they faced in the last 2 decades or whatever, but, can people at least acknowledge, and I know some have, but, one, the schedule is a schedule. I know with the 17th game now, what they determine now 4 total games following the season.
Yeah.
You play the 3 conference opponents that parallel your place within the division in your division. So you face the other 3 teams in those places in the other 3 divisions in your conference. And then now with the 17th, you might face another NFC or AFC team, depending, and I don't even know how they determine, that game, or,
Yeah.
Now there's going to be games on the moon eventually, so where it is, whatever, but, the schedule is literally, it's determined, aside, 13 of the 17 games, or what, are predetermined, and it's it kind of shows the Patriots are back where suddenly the schedule matters, where, you didn't hear the same critiques when the Bills won the division and the Patriots had 4 wins and the Jets and Dolphins were, being who they perpetually are. And then you don't hear the same critiques when the Chiefs won the AFC West with a paper tiger Charger team, over the years, and then the Raiders, not even knowing where they're going to be playing football, let alone how they're going to be playing football year to year, and then the Broncos, who had the longest playoff drought this side of the New York Jets, who the Broncos hadn't made the playoffs from their Super Bowl 50 win to their loss at Buffalo last season. So,
Yeah.
it's just the narrative is always incredible from, again, so-called media or talking heads. You have a guy like Dan Orlovsky, who unfortunately, has gone full heel turn, between the NFL and his incredibly biased takes, yet he has votes for some of these awards. It's just showing how big of a farce it is in real time. Dan Orlovsky, he'll be posting Go Yukon Women and Men in March, yet, he's now taking the full ESPN blue or red pill, whatever color it was in the Matrix, that Kendrick Perkins took, where he has to say some outlandish thing. Orlovsky doesn't want UConn to. If UConn were to go 12-0, Orlovsky would be pulling a Heather Dinich, how she did with Indiana 2 years ago, arguing that the Huskies shouldn't be included in the playoffs because James Madison lost at Oregon. So Orlovsky shouldn't really be taken seriously as a UConn fan or a media person anymore, to be frank. Like how it turned out for Heather Dinich saying not so many words, Indiana shouldn't be back, and then they go 16-0. So it's just, ridiculousness from the media in terms of the Patriots. And even you go on Twitter, and I've been arguing mostly with Kansas State fans about Jerome Tang lately, but you have the Bills and Broncos fans doing these insane victory laps. Where aside from the Vikings, obviously the Broncos have gotten three, but the Bills and Broncos have lost their fair share of Super Bowls. I know the Patriots have now lost the most, but they've also won tied for the most. So, what's weirdly, Bills and Broncos fans calling it the most embarrassing, worst Super Bowl loss, which is rich because, the Bills lost to the Cowboys 2 straight years, 52-17 and 30-13, which is a bigger scoring margin than what Seattle beat New England by. And then you have the Broncos, who and their losses 39-20, 42-10, 55-10, 43-8. I'm not a math major, but I think all of those scores are a much bigger margin than what the Patriots lost by. So do these Bills and Broncos fans, who are supposed to be so smart and lovable, even know their own team's history, do they have any grasp of knowledge for their own team? And they're doing these weird celebrations for the Patriots losing. Well, if it was so easy, why didn't they get there? Oh, the injuries, or Josh Allen, going rogue and fumbling it backwards, and or Dan Orlovsky expecting an offensive lineman to dive on the ball. It's just it's insane, and it's become unwatchable and unlistenable to some of these qualified media members who are supposed experts. Like Nina Kimes understands, the Yale graduate. She actually argues rooted in fact, and instead of who else her agent represents. So the Bills and Broncos fans, they could celebrate this loss, but if it's so easy, they should be there next year in the AFC Championship game. And and the Patriots having the most amount of Super Bowl losses, I guess, is something bad now. Yet the Lakers have the most NBA Finals losses, and everyone loves them and thinks that they're a better franchise than the Celtics. So it's just incredibly tough to keep up with. Just like that 5-minute rant was incredibly tough to keep up with. It's incredibly tough to keep up with the logic of today's media and mainstream fans.
Well, so despite Matt's latest rant, we are taking this Super Bowl loss better than the others that we mentioned. And shout out to Bills and Broncos fans, if you're listeners of the podcast, even maybe some future guests. Maybe we'll have a discussion if they come on next year, depending on if those two meet again in the playoffs, as Matt said, in the AFC Championship. So let's talk a little bit about the game. Again, we had time to reflect and digest, and we're not football geniuses by any means. Our playbook knowledge comes from NCAA football video game. But just to kind of start with the offense, so the offensive line, bad night. Right, this Seattle, they did blitz at times and got to May, but also when they just rushed four and played, 7 people in coverage, it confused May. They still got to May. Even when May had time, he missed some open targets. Will Campbell's been, kind of one of the people who have bore a lot of blame for the loss. A friend of the Duck on a Rock podcast and guest in December, who actually he alluded to the Patriots playing on Super Bowl Sunday. He never said they'd win it, but he kind of alluded to them playing on it. Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald, he said on his Pat's Interference podcast that PFF, for another analytics website, had 14 pressures given up by Campbell. Drew, who charts everything like a Belichick mad genius, he said he had less but still bad, and according to some metrics, some websites, it was one of the worst offensive line games of all time. Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator, wins Assistant of the Year. He does deserve credit for the Patriots season, the way May and the offense played, but he also deserves blame for having a horrible Super Bowl. So those are kind of my thoughts on offense. Again, when it's 12-0 and you get 2 late touchdowns to Mac Hollins and Ramondre Stevenson. It's like you said, there's it's a forgettable performance, but in the moment, it just seemed like they literally couldn't do anything, and anyone who watched the Super Bowl, even if you were just watching for Bad Bunny, could tell that about the Patriots offense.
Yeah, completely agree, Colin. With the offensive line, they definitely couldn't protect May against even normal pass rushes. The protection was not there, and May couldn't really read the defense. From what it seems, there were some throws that were there, or he was never comfortable in the pocket. He didn't make his reads, go through the progressions, and the few throws that were there that night, he either missed them or didn't make them. But the O-line had difficulties, obviously, all night, and any blitz seemed like it was 15 on 2. It just had that look, or similar to the Belichick famous clip that made the rounds on Twitter. Champ Bailey, it's going to be a long night, and that's really what it felt. And as you said, hopefully May learns from this. It was great. He helped them get there, just like McDaniels, but he did look overwhelmed. Similarly, kind of like to Jared Goff did when he was with the Rams during the Patriots' last Super Bowl win. But May, I guess you could frame it as he wasn't ready, but he got them there. He's a great quarterback. And I'm glad the defense kept it seemingly close. The defense, Christian Gonzalez, the defense really to stop a touchdown before the third. It became frustrating because if the offense had any sign of life or made any play or two at all, there was a chance to remain. They were always within striking distance, kind of, but it seemed insurmountable. Like 12 points seemed like 35, as we said. So, but the McDaniels play calls really just reflected, not being able to do anything on offense. But it was also a lot of concessions. Just conceding the punt, running a play on third down with no chance to just get off the field, which is not the mentality you ever want to see in a Super Bowl. And it definitely felt, as a fan, that it was not their night, and they were kind of resigned to that fact early on. And unable to make adjustments or changes needed to, come to life at all. So again, a tough end to a great season, but incredible by the coaches, players, to get there. And as a fan, it was just awesome to see them take the field in another Super Bowl so soon. But obviously, in this region, used to the championships, it's going to be hopefully another chance with this core where they make the most of it.
And yeah, so two things. You started with the defense a little bit too. Like you said, they did kind of do enough when you don't give up a touchdown, for that long in a game that the offense should be right there. And if they're, one level above inept, then they're right in the game. Gonzalez was great. He saved some plays with passes defended. Could have been a bigger margin, prevented some Seattle touchdowns. But the one thing the defense, if they did force turnovers, it's not completely fair to them, but a turnover changed the AFC Championship game with the lateral by Jarrett Stidham. Interceptions, a pick six by Jones against C.J. Stroud against the Texans in the divisional in Foxborough. If we were to compare this season, as a lot of people hoped it would end up, with, like Tom Brady's first Super Bowl and the Patriots' first Super Bowl, just a complete turnaround of a record and a playoff run built on, defense, special teams, and good enough offense. Then in the Super Bowl, they needed, just like against the Rams in Super Bowl 36, a Ty Law moment. They didn't get it. So that's where they really went after Darnold those first few drives when the sun was still shining in San Francisco. And if they seemed to be aggressive, hoping that they would get the big play, it didn't happen. And then when the offense couldn't do anything, and Seattle started, Walker started running the ball down the field and getting the field goals, then that was it, really. But the defense, Gonzalez was the star. He'll get the contract restructured probably or extended to over $100 million. Milton Williams, who was the big paycheck signed last offseason, he had a good season. He showed he was worth the paycheck. Now Gonzalez will get the big payday. But overall the defense did good, or well, I should say, but not good enough for that offensive performance. And then they didn't get any before the Super Bowl, some people said maybe a special teams play back and forth for either side would determine it, and they didn't get a Marcus Jones punt return or something to help them out. But yeah, that's really it for the game, and it's not an all-time classic that should be dissected at least on this platform for any huge analysis as why they lost. They weren't good enough, and the Seahawks were better. All right, so let's talk about next season for the Patriots and the coming years in the May Vrabel era. Matt, you want to take it?
Yeah, first and foremost, you just hope they're back. That's the tough thing. Like we were talking, you have guys like Joe Burrow who haven't been back since. You have historical examples. Dan Marino making the Super Bowl his second season, never getting back. Even Jared Goff, as we mentioned, obviously different teams, but the Lions have been, having good regular seasons, couple years there, and couldn't do anything in the playoffs. So you don't really know, and when you look at the salary cap and how it can break up a team rather quickly when you have a lot of guys on rookie contracts, you don't know. So you just hope, even with, as you said, Gonzalez breaking the bank here or there, but it's going to be hopefully another run with this core of Super Bowl titles. I forget what podcast I was listening to that mentioned that a lot of the guys in 97, especially on the defensive side of the ball, were there for the 01-02 year when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl. So it kind of, you just don't know, and that's obviously why you always want to take advantage of the opportunity when you have a chance to win a championship and be great. But again, they are set up where the two big things, they have the coach, they have the quarterback, despite my early criticisms of Vrabel early in the year, as well as, the just overall skepticism of the ceiling for this team. Now, the sky's the limit. So, you have the two needed pieces that every team needs, and now you have to figure out how to win at the line of scrimmage consistently and win in the trenches, just like Seattle did, to get over the top.
Yeah, like you said, a couple of things with that. Like, if we are comparing it to '96 Super Bowl loss to the Packers, like to us, that a lot of that core, even though they were in posters and the huge royal blue flying Elvis uniforms, and then the navy and New Century silver when they actually won the Super Bowl.
Nautical blue, nautical blue.
Sorry, yeah. So, nautical blue, the Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, Ted Johnson, Willie McGinnis, etc. Like, in our young age, that seemed like a long time. And in between, if Drake May and some of the guys on this team win it 5 years from now, it won't seem like that. But it will be tough to get back next year. The schedule's tougher not to go back to that. But also just in general, you think about teams, like you said, not just some of the quarterbacks that get there, lose, and never get back, but a lot of the teams that lose a Super Bowl and end up winning one are, you think about the Patriots doing it with the two eras of the Brady Belichick dynasty, even the Chiefs and their dynastic run, and then some of the other teams that aren't dynasties but make it twice, like just thinking about Peyton Manning's Colts, they won, then lost it. Roethlisberger's Steelers won, then lost it. Russell Wilson Seahawks won, then lost it. So sometimes winning it that first time, you get back, not necessarily mean you'll win it. They might need to be like Jalen Hurts Eagles, losing, getting back and winning it, and even getting back. Like you may not, Brock Purdy's 49ers, a la Jimmy Garoppolo's 49ers, all under Kyle Shanahan, they get back, they don't finish the job. So, we brought up how the Patriots did the same thing with the Giants, and in between their 3 Super Bowl run and to get the first 3 and the second 3, just like, the 49ers couldn't avenge a loss, right? So, like, some of that is just you could pick and choose which team or quarterback or coach or whatever to kind of say, well, they'll definitely be back, they'll definitely win it, or they'll definitely be back but maybe lose it, or they'll never get back. It kind of just, you have to see what happens with that. And like you said, it was great to see them run out of the tunnel. It was great to watch them in a Super Bowl again, even with the loss. But that's where, thinking about next year, we'll see who's on the roster. Like, I think a couple things, Cardi B and Stephon Diggs, not only did they not get their Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift moment with a Super Bowl win, it doesn't look like they're going to have a New England, Rhode Island wedding either. So that's, the first part of the Stephon Diggs question. Then obviously is the off the field issues, and then even just the contract. I believe it'd be a $26 million cap hit or so. I forget. Looked that up for the specific, but I think 26 million. Does he come back? Should he be brought back? Is what they'll have to decide. He had a good season, but just like the rest of the offense didn't do much in the playoffs. And then the defense, do they bring Chase on back? Or there was rumors leading up to the Super Bowl that Max Crosby would play for Mike Vrabel. They'd have to make a trade for Crosby, who beat the Patriots week 1 with the Raiders. So those are two things just that, as far as big names this offseason, what will that look like for next season's Patriots? Any thoughts on what you had for the offseason into next year?
Diggs and Barmore, obviously, the charges and accusations are serious, and concerning from a just human perspective, let alone football. So, you I guess see what the truth is and what happens in the courts before kind of figuring it out. I know, despite the contract with Barmore, one site said today, could have been one of the smart people at ESPN that they don't let on TV, said that Barmore might be like a trade candidate or just a move on candidate, depending on how that goes. And like you said with Diggs' cap hit, it might be tough. Where again, he had a great regular season, 1,000 yards for the first time. A Patriots receiver did that since Edelman, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you never know who's going to be a cap casualty or, in this case, be not the person you want in the locker room, depending. And obviously, the Patriots have supported Diggs, and he's saying that, he didn't do what's being charged or accused, so you have to give him a chance to defend himself, or his lawyers too, and have his day in court and kind of see how it turns out. So those are like those two kind of question marks where you have that. Obviously, as you said, Crosby, Rabel is going to be someone who is popular now as a coach to play for. He clearly is a player's coach, and I think free agents and just trade candidates are going to think of him as a coach they'd love to play for. And even like a guy like A.J. Brown who played for him, who's a little bit of a malcontent, at least framed that way in Philadelphia. So if he wants out of the Eagles and wants to reunite with his former coach for a franchise that, revisionist history should have drafted him, and especially considering he loved the Patriots and Tom Brady and Edelman and wanted to play for them coming out of college, so maybe he gets a chance to wear a Patriots uniform. I think maybe CBS Sports suggested, or maybe I mixed up CBS Sports and ESPN for the Barmore and Brown articles. The one had, that would be like if you gave them the 31st overall pick, which is technically a first, you forget the Patriots' first round pick is 31. Yeah. So, say it again.
No, yeah, it's so low.
Yeah, so it's, that's like trading down like they always used to with Belichick, is what it was arguing. I mean, you try to get like a second rounder back, but his contract's big too. So I mean, my favorite player on the defense this year, and probably on the whole team in a way, was Chason. So you look at researching him during the year. It's like he was part of that all-time LSU national champion team, and then he kind of disappeared in the pros with Jacksonville, and I think he was even like cut by someone, I forget, like Carolina cut him or something. But he had the 1 year stop in Las Vegas after not doing well or being hurt and not doing as well in Jacksonville as a first round pick. So the Patriots got him for 1 year deal, and now it's like, gosh, you wish he was signed for multiple years. So that's where I would love for him to come back. That's the player I would, if I could pick one, would want him to be back with the Patriots. And then, the draft and free agency, you never know what's going to come of it. And with the legal issues and possible trades, it should be a very interesting offseason. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to end this episode and wrap this episode up in true Duck on a Rock fashion, with the fashion of sports uniforms. The Super Bowl actually has been a place where a lot of teams now use superstition. And I want to just get into what the Patriots did. So the Patriots were the first team in NFL history to go 9-0 on the road on the way to the Super Bowl. So they went 8-0 on the road during the regular season, had the win at Denver. And, in some ways, even though it was the Seahawks rivals, the 49ers home, it was still a game away from home. So they picked their all-white look that, again, they were undefeated in. And their Road Warriors mantra to wear white and pick white as the home team. The AFC was home this year. Last year, the Eagles wore midnight green and the Chiefs wore white. And it's this second time the Patriots have picked white as the home team in the Super Bowl. The last time was the loss to the Eagles in the Super Bowl that we mentioned a bunch of times earlier. They have not picked blue as the home team since the second loss to the Giants. So they won their first two Super Bowls in blue, then lost it to the Giants, and they've worn white in every Super Bowl since, beating the Seahawks, the Falcons, losing to the Eagles, beating the Rams, losing to the Seahawks, and obviously now they have their not the Brady Dynasty era uniforms anymore, but the new ones that I like the piping like it's the 1960s and still keeping the flying Elvis and silver helmet. But Matt, what were your thoughts on them being superstitious again, picking white and losing as a superstitious white uniform team as the home team again?
I mean, it's just ridiculous with, no one's more ridiculous about uniforms than we are, and I just think when they did it with Belichick, I was shocked because it was such an anti-Bill Belichick thing to worry about what you're wearing, and then they lose the game to Philadelphia. Just from an overall historical perspective on the Patriots Super Bowls, as you already went down the list with it, it's just the fact that they've now picked white twice as a home team, but they've lost both times when picking white as the home team in the Super Bowl. So, they beat the Rams. If you go back, they beat the Eagles, they beat the Seahawks, they beat the Falcons and Rams in white, but all those were as the away team. So, they didn't pick white that game. They were obligated to wear it. And now you have the Eagles where they're overthinking it, and they lose that game after picking the uniforms. And then this one, I had a feeling they were going to pick the white. At least the silver pants are now more gray after Nike can't figure out how to make anything shine. So, we didn't. We saw the silver helmets in the California sun, but it would have been gray pants instead of silver in the California sun anyway. But it's just again something that it's not really in the Patriots mentality that's now become part of it. Now twice picking white as home, losing both times. So please no more of it. And I get the Road Warriors thing, but it's not consistent when you look at how they do these wardrobe choices. They only lost one game in the Navy with silver pants. They only lost the one, and that was, I believe, to the home opener to the Raiders. So they had won in it as a road team, and they won the two home playoff games in it. So yes, they're the Road Warriors, but they won two of the home
their first road win of the season was at Miami in blue with silver. Yeah. And their big win that showed that they arrived. We hate the blueberries. I never want them to wear the all navy, but was in navy jerseys. So
no, you're right. They were in the blueberries, not just at Buffalo, but also at Tampa Bay, which at the time was a huge win.
Yeah,
and they also wore the white with blue at Tennessee. So this all white was the New Orleans game, the Jets game, the Baltimore game, and then Denver. So it's not even like they wore that in the all nine. So it just, again, was overthinking the look, and obviously it didn't matter with the play, but it wasn't even like they had the same uniforms as they had against the Seahawks when they beat them. It wasn't the same style.
Yeah, and they didn't even wear white with blue pants.
Yeah, they didn't even wear the blue pants, so the Eagles was the same style aside from the helmet front bumper and the word mark across the chest, small across the chest. So it was, again, the Patriots, we're overthinking this now, but we're poking holes in the argument as to why they wore it and why, can we just if you're home, wear blue, and if you're road, just wear what they tell you to. It's, and again, the all white, people love them. I think they look nice for a game or two, depending, but I like the blue with this silver pants. It reminds me, again, of the dynasty years, despite the different jersey and piping. But yeah, I just think they, hopefully they get back in 2 years and make a better decision, as well as game plan and decisions on the field. But definitely a better laundry and thread decision, because that's just, it didn't work out, and it has technically not been luck. Like the Eagles, they lost when they did this, so I didn't really get it. But obviously that's just kind of a footnote. and I'm sure I could rant about it more. I think if you look at it too, like you said, from this season, it didn't really make sense either, because they won playoff games and what they would have been wearing in the Super Bowl. And I just think it's funny that they lose in the silver pants and they're back to wearing blue when they had all those down years where they keep the blueberries despite losses.
Yeah,
but then silver pants come into the equation. They didn't even wear it with white at all this year, but we lose in the silver pants now, have to switch back to blue. Well, you didn't do that when, the previous years, and they finally won and pat the Patriot against the Giants after losing a bunch of times with the red throwbacks, and they kept wearing those. So it's just an inconsistency that, hopefully what we won't have to worry about, and I'll instead worry about what the Celtics are wearing in the playoffs. But I will say to conclude, obviously we already said our thoughts about the Patriots, but we did have a podcast at the very beginning of the Celtics season, and I had a similar mindset to the Celtics as I did the Patriots in the beginning, sort of thinking it was going to be a down loss year, even suggesting the Celtics might need to tank if it got ugly. And now I'm having the opposite visions, and I'm thinking we're going to have the same conversation as we did regarding the Patriots that we'll have to have when the Celtics are on the cusp of the NBA Finals and another championship. So hopefully uniforms are the only thing I'm complaining about with the Celtics in June.
Yeah, and I think even to just kind of wrap it up from my side, a couple things I wanted to hit on just about the uniforms is the Steelers in 2005, when they won 3 road playoff games in white to get to the Super Bowl as a 6th seed, they chose white against the Seahawks, and they're not really navy. It was kind of in between royal blue and navy.
Which I actually like those.
Yeah, that tint, that shade is good. Yeah. But so the Steelers won it in white after picking white, and then the Broncos, who were 0-3 in orange, I believe, or at least winless. I think it was 0-3 in their Super Bowls. Coming off the loss 2 years earlier, the 43-8 loss you mentioned to Seattle with the Legion of Boom. They picked white against the Panthers in California in Super Bowl 50, and they beat the Panthers. So teams, it did work out for. Plus, I forget the crazy stats. Now we've had 3 straight Super Bowls where red, green, and navy blue. So 3 straight teams in color uniforms won. Where before it was like 15 out of 18 Super Bowls, the team in white won. So teams were leaning towards the white. But to your point, the Patriots, if it's about superstition, we lost to the Giants in blue twice, we can never wear it again. If it's about superstition, then either way, you've lost in both choices. You've lost in blue, and you've lost in white to the Eagles when picking white. So it just didn't make sense. And even though we're spending, almost 10 minutes on this, we're just hosting a podcast right now where we're
people
weeks later.
To this long ago,
and weeks later, like you said, the Patriots decided this in the lead up. If you're really focused, you wouldn't care. But
I will say too that the one, I guess I will make one exception, but the thing they should have done is not have worn the same uniforms they did the first time against the Giants the second time. If you were going to pick a different uniform as a home team,
that was
losing the undefeated, that was it.
It's the worst loss in NFL history.
And they marched down the same uniforms, and then now we're changing them in the succeeding years. I don't know, but I guess the one thing with the Broncos too, if you remember, the Panthers have never won. They still haven't won a playoff game. In the black uniforms,
yeah.
So I think that was the reverse strings too. But I guess the one exception that I'd possibly get behind is if the Patriots, where this is kind of a mythical scenario, just like the Brady-Aaron Rodgers hypothetical Super Bowl that never happened somehow. Even though Rodgers was so incredible, Brady was there all those years waiting for him, and Rodgers could never get back. But, and then 2010, I guess, Brady had to make it, even though they lost to the Jets. He ruined it somehow by, 14-2 losing that home game to the Jets, the one measly time Rodgers made it. But if the Cowboys were to make it, which They have to make an NFC championship game first for the first time in 30 years. That would be, I guess, the one exception where I know a lot of teams do the jinx where they try to have, the Cowboys wear their blue uniforms. So maybe that's the one thing in the future. But, that's the thing. It's weird. But there is a method to the madness. Like, I know we sound crazy talking about it, but actual NFL teams and people at these organizations with a lot of responsibilities for the franchise do think about this stuff through the lens that we're talking about.
In the biggest 2 weeks of their professional and personal lives leading up to the big... So, but the other thing, too, as you said, to kind of wrap things up here, now we're in a situation with UConn losing on the road to St. John's and UConn losing at home to Creighton in both beautiful throwback uniforms, the white Connecticut throwbacks. They've won a Big East tournament, regular season, and 2 national championships in. I didn't think I could love a uniform in college more than both Old Jonathans on the shorts and the Connecticut across the chest until they unveiled the Connecticut throwback blues this year. Had big wins. Fun game at Providence, big win at Kansas, and now UConn to wear those again in the Big East tournament or NCAA tournament as they try for another, multiple championships. I thought we'd be able to see both those on the court on the road. Now they'd have to lose in both their current white and blue to see those again. And like you mentioned, the Celtics, we thought it would be a season of tanking, and now we're actually hopeful that they have a championship run in them if Tatum comes back healthy and strong. And as Duck Hunter Rock, as we pivot from football season, we will talk more basketball with our each other guests coming up, even get into baseball and some other stuff on the sports landscape. So Matt, any final thoughts, and do you want to just take it from there to sign off?
Yeah, I mean, that's you said it well, and this is a very long wrap up. But yeah, I mean, UConn did say, well, these are our regular uniforms now, so the throwbacks have become regular, which I guess mean the ones with UConn are now the alternates. But it does seem like they'll probably march out in a different white as they did with the blue. So we try to keep track. We're very good at keeping track and doing the best we can with it. But it's tough to keep track of stuff. With the Celtics about to tip off against Golden State now when we've recorded this, I hope they're wearing green and white because at least the Patriots wore team colors technically. The Celtics with that the white, gold, and black uniform. Some days they're not even wearing green anymore. So the world is upside down, and it's not Stranger Things. So if you've stayed with us for as long as you have, appreciate the patience. Dan Orlovsky, if you're listening, I mean every word I've said it. So hopefully you change your tune instead of me changing mine. Because if UConn goes 12-0 next year with Jason Candle, then yes, they deserve to be in the playoff. Again, thank you to our listeners, both loyal and those who might just listen out of habit now. But thank you all. Again, congrats to the Seattle Seahawks fans who, unlike the Broncos and Bills, actually know. Bills fans actually know their team history. With that, we finally sign off, and thank you all, as always, for being part of our flock.